Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we have two very special guests with us today.
Hi, I'm John from the Cantrip.
And I'm Ange from the Cantrip.
Yes, so I mentioned to you guys on our show a few weeks ago. I first found out about you guys when one of you posted on the 5th edition Facebook group. And
That would probably been me.
There you go. And I saw it and I was like, oh, you know, this is a podcast, a D&D podcast that is not an actual play. Not that actual plays are bad, but there's just so many of them. So whenever I find a podcast that is not an actual play, I'm like, ooh, I want to see what this is about. So yeah, I've been listening to you guys ever since, and you guys were available to come on the show. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Do you guys want to tell our listeners about your show if they haven't listened to you?
Yeah. So we started off, we also noticed there were a lot of actual play podcasts, so we just wanted to talk about D&D.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of history, lore, mechanics type stuff, but it slowly morphed into learn from our bad experiences.
Sure.
Boy, we have them.
And as a side effect, she has to listen to me talk about this stuff day in and day out anyway, so she figured we might as well record it and put it online.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good way to go about that.
Yeah, honestly, the reason that I started this podcast, I'd wanted to make a podcast for a long time because I listened to so many of them, but I didn't have like a good topic. And then I realized like I really enjoy arguing with people about D&D. How can I turn that into something?
Like constructive, friendly arguments.
Like there was in particular, there was a Reddit post where somebody was like, hey, I have this problem player. What should I do? And I noticed every single reply was like, oh, kick him out of your group. And I was like, why is that the first response?
That should be your last resort.
Exactly. That should be your last response. So I wrote up, a big long thing. Hey, you could do this. You could do this. Try and keep this in mind and so on. And then I was like, oh, and then he deleted his post. So like that bundle of wisdom that I put out there on the internet, it was gone. And I was like, oh, if only there was some way to put this out there so more people could see it. I don't mean that to sound as conceited as it does, but so yeah. Anyway, I love you guys' show, and I'm glad to have you guys with us. So I normally ask Jeff this, but how are you two doing today?
I mean, it's hot here, so
yeah, it's hot. We've been having problems with our AC. It's broken twice in the last 2 weeks. So
that's awful.
Oh, and you guys are recording in like a tight space, aren't you? Like so
Yep.
It's like oh jeez,
Yeah.
Computer running, lights on. Oh jeez.
we'll survive.
Yeah. Well. So Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I've been editing episodes of FriendQuest.
Yes, you have.
It's our YouTube channel where we play video games. Mm-hmm. I have things set up now so that we can record a lot easier. So anytime Gabe wants to come over and play a game with me,
I would love to, maybe sometime in the next week or two.
Sure. But yeah, just getting those episodes up, trying to stay consistent with it. So so that's it's fun.
Cool. Speaking of air conditioning problems, I don't know if it's related to the air conditioning, but I have a mystery leak in my basement.
Mystery leak.
For the last few days, I've noticed that it's around the furnace and the water heater. I don't think it's coming from the water heater, but whatever it is, some sort of a leak in the basement. And I can't tell where it's coming from. And the soonest a plumber can come by is like 3 days from now. So,
ouch.
I mean,
yeah.
I'll give it a quick look because I've had a couple leaks in my basement in the last few months.
I would appreciate that.
So there's a couple things I can think of. Maybe it might be, but
yeah. My wife's out of town. I took her to the airport early this morning, and right as we were getting ready to leave, she spilled a glass of water very close to one of the vents, and for a moment I was like, you haven't been spilling water down the vents, have you? She said no, it was not something as simple as that. So
maybe your dog is doing it.
Oh, maybe he is. Well, anyway, you guys want to go ahead and get into this episode?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So I want you three to imagine that it is, I'll say it's Saturday morning. You three are all kids for some reason. And you're sitting down in front of the TV. You turn on the TV, pull the little knob, you turn on the old TV, the old cathode ray tube, the warm glow. It shines across the room and projects images of whatever you're watching on your face. And then you notice it's your favorite cartoon. Your favorite cartoon is the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Oh, man.
So Dungeon Master comes on the screen and he starts talking about the, cool stuff. I don't remember the intro to that show, so I won't focus on this too much. And then you see the evil dragon Tiamat comes on the screen, and in this particular clip, Tiamat is sitting on this giant pile of gold and magic items and so on and so on. And then you notice the TV starts flickering. And then you go to, you hit the side of the TV because that always seems to work. But when you do, the room around you starts to flicker. Ooh. You hit it again, it flickers some more, and then suddenly you realize that you three are right in front of this evil 5-headed dragon. Which is a bad thing, but you always like to look on the bright side, and the bright side is you have just been teleported into the dragon's horde. That was a Pleasantville type TV, apparently. That sucked you into the thing.
Oh, right. Wait, who's the guy that brings the
Don Knotts?
Don Knotts.
Don Knotts. I love that movie.
Yeah, he brings the remote control or whatever.
Yes. All right. So today's magic item is the Candy Box of Possibilities.
Okay.
And it was submitted by Sanphobia via email. And they actually mentioned this. This is actually from, I guess it was posted on a Facebook group. Cullen Bryant, I guess, made this item and posted it to the Homebrew Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Facebook group. So we did not make it. Sanphobia did not make it, but it's a fun item, and I thought I'd bring it in. So what this item does is the great oracle, Gump of Greenbow, often spoke of the connections between the mysteries of life and the anticipation of opening a box of chocolates to discover what assortment of sweets lies within. And I don't know why I didn't notice this until just now, but his name is Gump.
Yep.
I'm a little slow today. I apologize. Seeking to bring this concept to fruition, he developed his patented magic candy box that he liked to gift to the adventurers he met along his travels. Every week, 6 chocolates of unknown taste and effect will appear within the box that could aid, hinder, or otherwise alter a random aspect of the one who consumes at least one of the balls of chocolatey goodness wrapped neatly in silver foil. I wonder if that's actual silver. Because it's D&D, Anyway, the box replenishes itself once every 7 days. Any chocolates not consumed in this time will vanish and be replaced. When a PC decides to consume one, the DM will roll 1d100 to determine the outcome. Each candy is consumed in a single bite and cannot be spit out. 1 to 25 use dark chocolate, 26 to 50 use milk chocolate, white chocolate, large chocolate truffles, fudge squares, ruby chocolate, and if you roll a 100, it is a perfectly cooked s'more. Ooh. All effects last 1 day unless written otherwise. So this magic item has 100 different possibilities. We're not going to go over all of them today, but I will. I always put this on our website so anybody who wants to can look at all of the choices. But instead, I asked each of our hosts and co-hosts today to pick a few of these to mention. So, would any of you like to bring up one or more of the possible effects?
Well, I'm partial to effect number 54 myself. The honey flavoring inside tastes good until the bee swarm reaches the party. Better watch out.
That's pretty good.
Nice.
Actually, 52 through 56, all of those are really good.
Okay.
They're just all good. But my favorite is grants the permanent ability to use Draconic Sign Language.
I love that one.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, like Draconic Sign Language.
Yeah. Because, first off, who even knew there was Draconic Sign Language? But also, it's a permanent ability.
Yeah. You don't know Draconic, vocally or reading. You just know the sign language, I guess.
But then what are the logistics of it? Because you don't have claws, so you wouldn't make the same size as a dragon or like a dragonborn or anything.
Huh. I didn't even think of that. What if Draconic Sign Language requires wings and a tail?
Right.
Oh, man. All right, guys, I think this episode's going to be about Draconic Sign Language.
Right, yeah. So I like number 91, tastes like graphite. Pencils can be magically created and removed from the consumer's mouth at will for 1d4 hours.
Yes.
Pulling pencils out of your mouth.
Yes. I'm going to say right now, that very much sounds like a Binding of Isaac item. that you would get.
Sure, you shoot
Just
pencils.
every now and then you shoot a pencil out of your mouth. I really like number 43. The consumer grows an extra pair of arms that they will have full control over.
Yeah.
Roll 1d20. If the result is a 1 or a 2, the arms will not match your race, which I like to imagine means you have like giant arms.
Sure.
Or tiny arms.
Or tentacles.
Or
why'd you
tentacles.
go there?
Oh, snap. They can be removed with any cursed dispelling item or spell.
Wait, which number was that one?
43.
43? Is it? That's not a permanent one, is it?
No, it unless said otherwise, it is
says a day.
for a day.
Yeah, because there are some of them that'll say it's like permanent, and then some of them are like less than a day. But gosh, I'm trying to remember which number it was. Sorry, I didn't actually have these ones written down.
Jeff,
Some of them are just chocolate, which is kind of nice.
I love that. There was one in particular. It was number 71.
Yeah.
That is, a smile is drawn in frosting on it.
Yeah,
And that's it.
there's
all it is.
one with a sad face too.
Yeah.
There's also number 62, which I feel is kind of a given no matter what. It says, a voice in your head calls you fat for consuming the chocolate, and it makes you sad.
Wait a minute. I've been eating those my entire life.
Number 37, a random magical jingle echoes softly through a 1 mile area.
Oh,
So-
that's good.
So for a day, I'm assuming like it's like a mile radius of where you eat it.
Sure.
A magical jingle is playing softly in that area. Just imagine being somebody within that mile radius.
By men and over and over for a day.
Or like the Mentos commercial song. Like
I don't know
Oh, that's
if
pretty good.
84 is good or bad. It turns 10 gold into more non-magical chocolate.
I mean, is it good chocolate?
I would assume so.
That's the deciding factor,
See,
whether
it
it's
doesn't
good or bad.
say. In D&D, I have to imagine any chocolate is good chocolate. Like how much chocolate do you have in ye olden times?
Yeah, good point.
Depends. Do you have magical candy box?
I do now.
Oh, yeah. There was okay, here's one that it's I'll just read it. Okay, 95. The consumer adds their proficiency bonus to any sleight of hand roll that involves daggers or vegetables.
Weirdly specific.
What does that even mean?
This one has a sort of odd mechanic to it. Number 17 swaps the consumer's gender for 2d10 days. If both dies when you roll that 2d10 days match in number, so if you roll 2 5s, so 10 days.
So 5 5 or 2 and 2 or
Right. The consumer will be sort of ugly. Like, what is sort of ugly? Like,
well, that's up to you as the player to determine.
so it's like not only am I the opposite gender, I'm not as attractive as I once was. So,
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're just not your type.
Maybe
You're not
maybe.
your own type. Okay.
Well, I've got 2 D10s right here. You wanna get a random one and see what it comes up as?
Go for it.
25.
25.
A decorated pine tree appears before the consumer with a wrapped and labeled present for each ally or NPC present.
Oh, that's
like 25 as in the 25th of December.
Yeah.
oh, that's good.
Christmas.
Yeah,
just-
that's nice.
just
That's
nice.
cool.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I mean, there's some of them that are. There's actually a couple of them that are the same thing, and it's a random magic item of the DM's choice appears in the consumer's bag.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that's also just for a day. So like for a day, you get a random magic item.
Oh, that would only be for a day, wouldn't it?
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's sort of a cool thing. You could give them a really powerful magic item that they only have for one day.
That's true. I feel like we talked a long time ago about magic items with expiration dates. Where like you have a magic item that it's only going to be magical for this amount of time, so you have to use it or it's wasted.
Or just like sell it, for its full value when it's magical, and then you run.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Okay, and then I think I just want to bring up the very last one. If you roll 100, it is understandably really good. Gain +5 to all 6 of the consumer's stats for 3 days. After this, the effect stays another 1d4 days, but the consumer gains 1 level of exhaustion each day.
That's insane.
That is insane.
And I mean, this doesn't state that this can't bring your total over 20.
That is correct.
So I mean, like you could potentially have over 20 in a couple stats with this.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is a really fun item. I think there's a whole bunch of cool effects on there. So again, I'll put this on our website so anybody who wants to look at the entire list can do so.
Yeah, I like stuff like this. And I like there was like the bag of magic beans or something.
Oh my
bunch of cool stuff.
Oh my goodness, Jeff! I was at an actual D&D game like a month or so ago, and I think we were each going to be given we could each buy a magic item or something, and one of the players was like, "Oh, bag of beans," and I was like, "Oh no, don't gloss over that. You look over that item.
Yeah.
You see what that item does."
Yeah.
And then I impressed upon them the fact that you can accidentally create like
a mummy lord,
10 mummy lords that will then destroy the countryside or something. Oh,
like it creates a pyramid with a mummy, so a mummy lord and its lair is just appears, and it's like it's permanent. It's like that is there until somebody deals with it.
Yeah.
And
such a great item.
It's like a challenge like 18 or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway. So that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard. Again, that was the Candy Box of Possibilities, submitted by Sandphobia, but created by Cullen Bryant. So, Jeff, if anybody wanted to submit magic items for us to discuss, or questions for the show, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. And Angela and John, once again, how can people get your show if they would like to listen to it?
It's soundcloud.com/thecantrip, or you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play.
Cool.
We're pretty much just on all the other podcasting stuff.
Sure.
And you can email us at thecantrippodcast@gmail.com if you have anything for us as well.
There you go. So then we have a giveaway to give away as well today. So we're giving away a copy of Chapel on the Cliffs, as we usually do, from Goblin Stone. So Jeff, who is our winner today?
Our winner today is Lath.
Whoa, winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, Lath. You should be getting that within the next 24 hours. Check your spam folder if you don't, and if you still haven't gotten it, contact me, and I usually get a copy of the email as well, so I will forward that on. So Goblin Stone made that. They're a great creator of adventures and such. Mm-hmm. Check them out. I also want to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. We've got a few different tiers. We have outtakes. We have bonus episodes. We've got monthly Patreon game, which should be happening within the next couple of weeks. And yeah, if you're a patron, you can help the show and still get some cool stuff in return for it. Also, two other podcasts that I want to talk about. Crit Academy, critacademy.com. They make new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. So check them out. They're a lot of fun. Also, D&D Character Lab. They make characters and then debate whose character is better. So they are a lot of fun. So go check them out as well. And of course, check out The Cantrip. SoundCloud.com/thecantrip, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Do you guys want to go ahead and get into some questions?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into questions, I do just want to mention a couple episodes ago, we talked about that we had a question that was like what to do if a player has a goal that is beyond the scope of the campaign, like immortality and such. I guess the question was in response to a specific player, and apparently that specific player did listen to the episode and felt a little bit singled out. I just wanted to mention this on the show, especially upon re-listening to the episode. I don't think we necessarily did anything wrong. I don't think we really said anything bad about the particular player. I don't know the particular player. I don't know his character, but I do know players who have had similar goals. And so when we talk about questions on the show, I do usually try to give as much of a devil's advocate point of view as possible. I try to see what even a problem player, I try to think about what the problem player might be thinking, not necessarily that this was a problem player or wasn't, but again, I don't think we said anything wrong. I don't think we necessarily did anything that was directly singling out a particular person. However, I do just want to say, I don't want any listeners to ever feel like, I don't want anybody to ever be afraid that maybe we might be talking about them and in a bad way.
Right.
So if anybody ever does feel that way, I apologize. It was just a little strange to have a listener comment on the show that was in some way related to a question. Like sure. I've talked about specific people that I've played with, sometimes in a negative fashion. Mm-hmm. I do apologize if anybody ever does hear something that was about them. That being said, I generally try to give a broad scope on things. Yeah. I don't think we'll ever talk about something that only one person ever has done. When we do talk about something, even a problem-ish player or whatever, it's usually something that I've encountered many times.
Yeah, most of the time when we're answering a question, we are filtering it through our own experiences and just coming. Like I come up with a lot of like hypotheticals and stuff like that. So I'm rare. I like in most cases, I'm not even thinking about a real scenario.
Sure.
I think of worst case scenarios all the time in my head, so I'm just coming up with crap on the spot.
Yeah.
And and in a lot of cases, we'll be answering a question. And then we'll be going on and on and on about all these like ideas and hypheticals, and then we'll turn around and look at the question and be like, "Oh, we didn't answer this at all."
Right?
Like, we forgot about the question after right after I read it. So like sometimes that'll happen. So in most cases we're not going to be talking specifically about the person who asked the question or so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't want anybody to ever feel like we are singling anybody out. But one thing that I do want to say is that even if we do, I mean, hopefully we won't ever say anything that's like, super bad about a listener. But if we ever do say that somebody is a bad player, which I don't know if we ever have before. I think in this particular instance, I just said it was the hallmark of an inexperienced player. But if someone is a bad player, the best thing about it is that you can always get better. If you are aware that you are making a decision that somebody has an issue with, you can always change that decision. So if we ever do say anything negative, I apologize, but try and take that and try and get better. Yeah. So anyway, I guess let's go on with the question. Sorry for that little digression.
That's great. All right, so our first question comes from Jake on email, and they ask, what are the advantages and disadvantages of co-DMing a campaign?
Sure. John or Angela, would either of you like to define co-DMing a campaign?
Or do you want to define a co-DMing campaign?
No, I think maybe just one of us should talk at a time.
That's probably a good idea.
Well, when you're co-DMing, it's when when two or more people at the table are either trading off or sharing the responsibilities of the dungeon master or game master, depends on the system, whatever you're calling it. And there are definitely some really big advantages to doing it. Being a DM, anyone who's ever tried it knows that it's a huge amount of work. Mm-hmm. So I know in our case over here, we do co-DM some of our events at conventions. And usually what we'll do is we'll have one person will focus on the story and the NPCs, and the other person will design the... Angie's over here waving because she's the one that does that. And then I'll usually handle designing the encounters and making those fun and interesting. And we can usually get something much more interesting completed, and often a lot faster than either one of us could do it alone.
Mm. Yeah, so splitting the responsibilities, which having to do that all by yourself, you might cut corner here, skip an event there, whereas splitting it up, you can focus on making the the encounter really, really good, and then she can focus on making like the role playing encounters really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one benefit of that is that if one DM has a particular thing they're really good at and one particular thing they're really bad at, then it can definitely mitigate that.
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest at role playing. I like to think that I'm getting better, but if I had a friend that was like they were really good at role playing, but not, or role playing situations, but not as good at combat, then I imagine we could switch off or something like that, and then that would help make the whole better than the sum of its parts, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if someone has a sick day, you can always cover for them too.
Oh, absolutely.
True.
Absolutely.
True. Yeah.
It could also help if you have a really large group to have multiple DMs, not necessarily for what you were saying, John, but if you wanted to, like, let's say you did want to split the party at one point, you could have one DM take one party and one DM take the other party, and then have them reconvene at some point.
Oh yeah, that is a big thing, because like splitting the party happens more often than I feel like it should. And like having an extra DM, you're like, okay, fine, let's do this. All right, we'll like step into the next room or something. I don't know. Like, but yeah, that's like the time that the rogue just really wants to go off on his own and pickpocket people.
Sure.
So it doesn't like, stop everybody else's game.
I would love the idea of playing a game where there were two DMs, the players split into two groups, and then the two DMs were communicating with each other, like via text or whatever, so that when Have you guys done something like this before?
Yes.
Yeah, the last one shot we ran at a convention, we actually did that.
Oh.
We had a higher level group that was fighting a boss encounter that I was running, and we had another lower level group that Ange was running for that was trying to stop a bunch of rituals that were going on. Anytime a ritual was completed over at Angela's table, one of my special attacks would recharge.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And anytime one of those special attacks was triggered or they managed to overflow any amount of magic into the boss encounter, it would feed back to Angela's table and damage anyone working in any of those rituals. So
really cool.
the two teams were totally aware that they were affecting each other's combats, and they could play off of each other and sort of strategically whittle each other's fights down.
Yep.
That's really cool. Now, how difficult was that to set up and coordinate?
The coordination for us it worked out pretty well, although we've been like co-DMing life for a while now, so that wasn't difficult. I think the hard part was probably keeping it interesting for the two groups, because we weren't entirely sure, like, if one group really decimated their encounter, which happened, your group decimated their encounter pretty quickly, so mine wasn't as effective.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit more boring at my table. So it's something that I feel like we probably could have tested better, but if you balance it out right, it's super fun.
Sure. One potential disadvantage, I think, of this is if the two DMs or however many DMs there are not on the same page, then they can both be working towards different goals, and that can disrupt the flow and make it not feel cohesive.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's like, even if you take the time and work everything out together and stuff like that, like, you're still two different people, so you might be thinking one thing, and and somebody's going to be thinking the other, and I mean, I don't know, like, there's always going to be a chance of you clashing or something like that.
Sure. I've never personally co-DM'd a campaign. I've done campaigns where, like, between adventures we switch off. So, like, each DM or each player is also DM, and then they run a different adventure and so on. But I've never run one myself where like there were multiple people DMing at the same time.
I just had an idea for how to do that sort of thing. When you do something like that, and like, so one of the players isn't playing their character, and so what is that character doing? How about, like, there's a cursed item that the party all, like, touches or something. Think of Trine.
Okay,
the game Trine.
Yeah.
Where they all touch this thing, and, like, they all can't exist at once.
Right.
So it's a cursed item that's in the party's possession that has basically the soul of one of their party members in it at any time, and it randomly, not random to the players, but random to the characters, like, sucks one of them in and spits the other one out. So, like, that's where that missing party member goes.
Sure.
And then they have to protect that item, otherwise they might, that person might die or something like that.
Oh, that's really cool.
I don't know.
It could even be that, like, this is a very powerful artifact that like drains the power of anybody touching it, but we have to get it from here to there. So, like, you have to keep passing it off from person to person. While you're holding it, your character is
the
immaterial or something.
The locket in Harry Potter. The locket.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, they had to, like, one of them had to be wearing it. It's otherwise they'd start going crazy or whatever.
Sure. Can you guys think of any more disadvantages of co-DMing campaign?
Yeah, if you're not checking your partner to know what they're doing, I mean, I guess this goes with the not being coordinated thing, but just because you're covering each other's weaknesses doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of what they're doing.
Sure.
Because you can just end up with wildly different, like, if one person's running the encounters and the other person's coming up with the story, and those two aren't matching at all.
Yeah.
Like, in any way, shape, or form, because you're, like, you just trust somebody, hey, I'm going to write up these encounters, and then the person writing the story doesn't pay any attention to where you're going or what you're giving them. It'll be very discordant.
Yeah, you don't want your players feeling like they're playing two different games.
Definitely.
You want consistency in any campaign. If you're even if you're running it by yourself, you want consistency. in the rules and the story and like, you know, just in the way everything's run. So yeah, when you got two DMs that like it's not going to be perfectly consistent. So yeah, keep an eye on each other and, you know, make sure that, you know, you're not going in two completely different directions, even not even just in the story, but in like, I don't know, like theming and rules and such.
Sure.
And if there's something you need, if there's something that you need the other DM to be aware of, like if I'm writing something that I think is going to be a really cool villain or a really cool dungeon, it needs to have a place. And I need to at some point pass that off to Ange here to fit that into whatever narrative she's working on. Or vice versa. If there's something that I need to be in the narrative for my encounter to work, or if she needs a specific encounter to work inside of her narrative, you need to have that cross communication or it's not going to work out well, and it's going to be really, like Ange said, it's going to be really discordant.
Yeah. If you think of like in video games, people hate when the gameplay and the cutscenes seem to be two completely different games. Like, you know, you're going around killing guards left and right with nothing but a handgun, but then the cutscene happens and, oh no, one guy has a gun on you. I guess you're put in prison now.
You're fine.
Yeah, I hate that.
You know, that sort of thing, I'm sure, could happen if the two people are not on the same page.
Our next question comes from Jonathan, and this was through email. How can I get better at creating and using character voices?
Yeah. So, and just to be clear, this was not you, John, correct?
Correct.
I think your name is spelled differently than this one.
It is.
So yeah, how can you get better at creating and using character voices?
I don't know, Gabe. How can you do that?
Jeff was just doing a patented Gabe move where he puts his hands in front of his mouth and then just kind of like makes like two little claws or whatever and just kind of like wiggles his fingers while he speaks.
That's how you speak goblin or kobold or some other small, you know, critter.
Yeah, anything that is not a player race that is small sized or smaller, that's how they speak.
You're just talking like this.
I would say practice. You know,
Yeah.
trying it. Just try it out.
Driving in the car. If I'm driving in the car, usually alone because my fiance doesn't like loud noises.
Okay.
So, I will test out like voices and stuff. You know, like not for any particular reason. I'm just weird. I don't know. Ever since I was little, I've been doing like weird voices. Not that I'm any good at any of them. I just make noises and voices. That was your dog, not me, by the way.
Yeah. Jeff, stop making those noises.
So like, you know, there was a point in middle school, I think a kid came up to me and asked me if I had Tourette's syndrome. And I was like, no, I just like making weird noises. Like, it's just a thing I do. Doing weird voices, making noises, you know, cartoons and video game characters and stuff. I'd be like, oh, that's a funny voice.
Like a certain green dinosaur that Mario rides around on.
Yeah, you know, I do a pretty good Yoshi. Or like Stewie Griffin or like, see, I'm going to say all these and I'm going to like, I can't do it right now because I'm on the spot.
Oh, of course.
It would I would embarrass myself, I feel like.
Gotcha. Well, if you feel like, I'm going to give you a rare opportunity, Jeff. If you feel like recording any of these on your own time, I will create a sound drop for whichever ones you send me.
Okay, I can create my own set of dings.
Sure. Yeah, so practice, like I was saying. Another big thing is you got to commit. You got to commit 100% because if you think it sounds stupid, everyone is going to think it sounds stupid.
Yeah, like I was saying before, consistency is everything. So yeah, don't break that voice. Like if you feel like you can't keep up that voice, don't use that voice.
Sure.
That's, you know, practice it.
I watched a documentary a while ago. I don't remember what it was called, but it was basically about being a like a voiceover artist or like a voice actor.
Yeah.
So it was interviewing all sorts of voice actors that I'm sure everybody has seen in all sorts of things. So I had like people from The Simpsons. I had people had Frank Welker, who has done like more voices than anybody. And one of them, I don't remember who it was, but one of these famous people was saying something along the lines of, if you think that you could be a voice actor just because you can do a funny voice, you're wrong. What you should do is you should try to do that funny voice and talk for an hour in that funny voice.
Yeah.
And read Shakespeare in that funny voice.
Yep.
If you can do all those things, then you can be a voice actor. It's not the same as being able to make a funny voice. Now, in D&D, you don't need to do all that. But if you just get more comfortable doing voices, you'll be, even if it's just getting comfortable doing one voice, eventually you'll be able to branch out and do other voices too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like some of the voices I do are just alterations of other, like
There you
I
go.
get good at one voice, then I put a little spin on it. Like I have a Gollum voice
Okay.
that kind of came off of my Yoshi voice. I just made it
Oh,
gurgle.
there you go.
So it's hold on, I'm gonna try.
Okay.
This is my Yoshi voice. I talk like this.
But if I make it a little gargly,
This is my speaker voice.
Those were really good.
I want,
Yeah,
my,
Those were really good.
I want my precious.
so it's made it. I just changed it into that. So
Sure. John Nand, you got anything to add?
any funny voices?
Any funny voices? Yeah.
Well, like you said, Gabe, it's all about practice. Practice. You pick a voice, you stick with it, and you go with it for as long as you can.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's that's pretty good.
Accents they're an easy way to do a character voice because, it's kind of just, it instantly makes you sound like you were someone other than yourself. So doing an accent is an easy way. I would say to an extent, just doing an accent is a little bit of a crutch. Like it's not, an accent isn't the same as a voice,
Sure.
but most of the time it serves the same purpose. Most of the time it'll do the job.
Yeah.
I've found what has helped me, particularly with the accents, is when you make a character, if you think that there's a certain way that they would talk, an inflection of the voice, an accent, an unusual speech pattern, use that for a player character that you're playing as first, because then you'll get in the habit of using it. You'll use that voice all the time,
Yeah.
and then. Like you guys have said, you'll be able to branch out from there. You'll get more voices, more accents, and then once you start running a game of your own, you'll be able to carry those into your NPCs, and it'll bring your entire game world to life.
Sure. One thing that I want to mention is that, because I've seen people ask about like a male doing a female's voice and a female doing a male's voice. I think I've even mentioned this on the show before. It's doing a voice like that isn't just a matter of pitch.
Right.
Like, if I start talking like this, that doesn't inherently mean, oh, I'm a female. Similarly, if if a woman were to like try to talk like this, that doesn't inherently translate to male either. So with that, I think, I don't know. I think it's more a matter of like the tone in your voice. It's about the way you speak, like a certain softness. I think.
I mean,
Softness or lack of softness.
so we had talked about not too long ago about the Harry Potter audiobooks, and Jim Dale is the narrator, and he does all the voices.
Yeah.
And he does like the voice of like Hermione and everybody and all the different all the female characters and stuff. And he doesn't try to go like too high pitched or anything with it. He he goes with what the character would sound like. So like Hermione's kind of like a slightly like softer but like a little bit more rushed and like articulate voice, and or all the way over to what's her name, Umbridge.
Oh yeah.
Which his Umbridge is fantastic, and so it's like it's chilling. It's really good, but like it's still Jim Dale, the male doing a voice, but like you could make it distinct. But you don't have to like don't try to overcompensate. Just because you're not a just because I'm not a like female orc. It doesn't mean like I can't make it distinct in a way that it's like like if you make it distinct enough and do it consistently enough, they're gonna associate that voice with that character, whether it be a female orc or a male elf or something.
Absolutely. One thing that I think is very important to mention is, even though it's not necessarily directly voice related, the physicality of speaking as a specific character can be a huge part of making your players think of that character. So even if you're not necessarily doing anything different with your voice, if every time a specific NPC speaks, you like tilt your head a little bit. Like there's one time I think when I was running the Age of Worms campaign, there's a ghost that you meet in the first adventure that is a kid that broke his neck.
Oh yeah.
And so I tried every time, like when the players met him, and then like every time they interacted with him, I would try tilting my head as far as I could while I was speaking, even though I don't think I changed anything with my voice. As you do that, like if you do it once and then like the players go off, they do something, they come back and they're talking to other NPCs, whatever. Then they come back and then I tilt my head again. And then I do it again later. And like he shows up again much, much later in the adventure path. And then I don't think it had the desired effect, but my hope was that you guys would be doing your thing, and then I say you guys hear a voice, and then I tilt my head. My hope was then that the players would be like, "Oh, it's that ghost! It's that kid from the first thing." I don't think that happened.
We don't have that great of
reason.
attention span.
Maybe also it was like a year and a half of out of game time between the two events, but something like that could make up for not doing a different voice, or it could augment a voice that you are doing. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And don't discount like things like hand motions or other quirks as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have one character who I just talk in my normal voice, but she constantly repeats herself because she's always hearing voices in her head, and she's not sure if she's crazy or if she's hearing gods because she's a cleric.
Yeah.
But I'll always, unless it starts to get really annoying, every time I ask a question or I turn to somebody, I'll say their name twice or repeat myself just so they know which character I'm speaking in.
Sure.
And then I drop the ball on every other character because they're all male characters, and I can't. I'm garbage at voices.
And then you just talk like this all the time.
Pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah, and how you announce things can work too. I know I have a particular elven woman in my Pathfinder campaign that I run for Angela and our daughter, who always makes sure to enunciate all of her words precisely, because she's always speaking in this soft, refined voice. Because she's not from around here. So things like that.
Yeah, it's like a somebody who's not from around there, like talking loud and enunciating everything.
Sure.
I am not
and
from
of course I
around
messed up
here.
the word enunciate.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Also, something as simple as giving a character a lisp could be a very simple shorthand. I don't know how you SH with a lisp.
Shorthand.
Could be a good shorthand for again, just giving your character something that is different that the players will be able to recognize and associate with that character.
Yeah, and it's sort of like verbal tics or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know,
So
make it
like
interesting.
you could like say like something like every like other like word. Like, I don't know, I can't think of any examples, but like you could like
I'm confused. That just sounds like me.
Are you like trying to like say something like Gabe?
not about anybody in particular, but
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So yeah, it doesn't have to be a voice. It could just be something different you are doing while you're talking, whether it's something different with your vocabulary, something different with your pronunciation, something different you're doing with your body.
Yeah. What's the D&D equivalent to chewing gum?
Ooh.
Just have like an NPC that's always like chomping on gum.
I mean, it could be just chewing gum or chewing something.
Like I don't know. Like, or it's just, I guess, like chewing like a piece of fat or something.
Yeah.
Could be a butcher.
People probably did that.
Always eating a turkey leg. I have a character that does that because I can't do a dwarven voice to save my life, so his mouth is just always full, so I can talk like this for my own fun.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
She's
Like,
had
let's
me
be-
bring a couple of voices in too.
Sure. Let's be honest. Most NPCs probably are not going to.
last.
They're probably not. I mean, they're probably going to be there to do what they need to do, and then the players are probably never going to think of them again.
Right.
So even if it is a very shallow trait you're giving them, it's better than nothing. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah. The important part is for the encounter to be memorable.
Yeah. And anything that you can give to make the players just remember that encounter, remember anything. You know, if it remains in their memory, you have succeeded, I would say.
Our next question comes from Mostly Joe on email. Do you think the market still has room and desire for anime genre emulation or inspiration, see 90s anime game boom, or have we moved past that?
Yeah. And disclaimer, we've had this question on our list for a very long time because we haven't really had a good answer to it.
Right. Like neither of us are super experienced with any sort of anime sort of thing. I like anime. I've gone to a couple anime conventions. I'm not an expert in any way.
Yeah, especially in regards to tabletop gaming.
Sure. I have experienced one. I haven't played it. I was a witness at a table of an anime inspired tabletop game. It was like I still can't describe it properly, but it was basically just a bunch of sexy women characters doing tasks for a master or something like that, and like the way that you got like bonuses to your actions or something was to make it as ridiculous as possible. It was just it was very odd, but it's sort of anime, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. So yeah, did you guys have a good response to this?
Well, actually, the first role-playing game I ever played was the Sailor Moon role-playing game back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Oh, she's the one.
So that was actually pretty well written.
Okay.
For the time. I know RPGs weren't in, especially like smaller publications, weren't in the best spot at the time, but it was fun. I only played it a couple of times. I don't know that there's that sort of demand now, because they tend to follow along with like big IPs, big names, and I don't know that there's a really big name anime right now that we can expect to stick around long enough to get that sort of a publication to it.
Yeah.
Well,
that
okay.
wasn't the case back in the 90s. There were only a couple that even made it over to the United States that actually made it onto television. So those were played over and over again for years. So they stuck around long enough for that to happen. It might not be a phenomena that we can expect to see repeated.
Well, now, I don't know why I never thought of this in response to this question, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen people try to come up with a way to make Pokemon into a tabletop RPG.
Sure.
Yes, please. That's like the only thing I can think of that would carry.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, because I mean, like, one, you can adopt some of the mechanics from the video games, which is all like turn-based stuff, and then like you can still have role playing. Like role playing, at least you base your role playing and stories and stuff on the show. Base the actual fighting mechanics on the video games.
Yeah,
that'd be fair. I feel like that wouldn't be too difficult.
Sure.
It wasn't. Oh, I didn't play it on tabletop. I played it. It was like a tabletop RPG. Like what the heck? Open RPG. Or there was another one too. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just like an online thing you logged into, and like you can make character sheets, and it was a chat room, and you could roll dice and stuff. It's kind of like Roll20, but
before Roll20.
But before Roll20,
yeah.
People would make games constantly on that thing, and like you'd get people would share the files, and just you'd play like it was like a Dragon Ball Z role playing game. You made a character. It was just battles. You'd fight each other, but you would like sort of try to role play in between. But that was sort of like those sort of chat room things were like the Wild West in a way, where like rules were made up on the spot, and like because when I played it, I was like really young, and I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, that's the rule, I guess, I'm not gonna. Like, there wasn't any publication or anything for it. It was just, people would just make this stuff up because they liked Dragon Ball Z and wanted to play something like it.
Sure. So Ange, you seem to react pretty pretty well to the Pokemon idea.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've kind of always wanted something like that, though Pokemon itself is a pretty bloated franchise, so it would be
definitely
hard to create. Though, I think, like, what it boils down to is, the answer to this question is yes, but, because there's a demand for it, but by the time somebody would write up a system, get the unique rules and everything, whatever you're trying to play is probably already faded out of demand.
Yeah.
It just takes that long to turn over a balanced game. That's what we talked about it a couple weeks ago, the Doctor Who game. By the time I saw Doctor Who come out, which I've heard is a fantastic role-playing game. It's a very well-written game and system and everything. But by the time I had seen it, I was like, does anybody watch Doctor Who anymore? And I didn't pick it up and play it.
Well, they took it off of Netflix. That's the problem.
Oh. Yeah.
So, I think what you're saying, though, is, like, with Pokemon, I feel like Pokemon, like, has been in mainstream for a good amount of time. And like it's not like super high demand.
About 20 years.
Right. So I mean, I feel like Pokemon could succeed in that. Like, by the time even they come out with something, maybe like the next generation will come out and there'll be some new thing that they'd have to add to it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The difficulty that I would see with making specifically a Pokemon game is that in order to make it true to the game, you would essentially have to come up with some way, and whatever you're doing for the Pokemon stats, you have to come up with some way to make each and every one of them unique. And even if you're going with just Generation 1, that is 151 unique creatures or just unique movesets or something.
I guess that's true. If you're going off of like the Pokédex descriptions and like there's that whole thing where like the descriptions in the Pokédex, like they have like the little text blurbs, and there's a different one in each game for each Pokemon.
Oh, right.
Or at least there's some of them like describe different aspects of it. It's like Alakazam has an IQ of 5,000. Like, sure he does. Sure he does.
Charizard's fire is hotter than the sun.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you can be standing next to that. No problem. Like,
Right.
But there's like the theory that like, because these are 10-year-olds getting these,
They're all written by.
It's like, oh yeah,
kids,
he's so smart. His IQ is 5,000.
Yeah. So, with something like Pokemon, I think that, like you're saying, Ange, there is a demand, but would someone be able to do it justice?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if someone would be able to do it justice in a way that, at least half the fan base wouldn't shoot it down and say, no, that's not what I want out of a Pokemon RPG.
Yeah.
I think if you tackle like a genre as a whole, if there was somebody who was putting out like the Magical Girl role-playing game or the mech role-playing game just specifically,
Yeah.
and then you could, okay, so I've got the mech role-playing game, my favorite mech anime is Evangelion, now I can play through that. But somebody over here, there's its Gundam, they can play through that. It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
that might be a good way to tackle it.
Actually, we were discussing this question earlier. While we were talking about what we wanted to bring up during this show, and we were thinking, well, what might work would be like you almost need to release maybe a supplement for that system every time a new show comes out.
Sure.
Like for Magical Girls, you'd have, well, obviously there's a Sailor Moon one, and then you could have like a Madoka Magica one, and then, well, Yuki Yuna just came out, so let's release a little, like 30 or 40 page book for how to tweak the rules for Yuki Yuna, because all these different shows would have slightly different rules for how things work, but for the most part, it's girl gets magic powers, transforms, fights bad guy. Like it's a similar formula for all of them, and you could almost like have some sort of partnership there where a game company partners with all these different anime companies, and new anime comes out, they release an update for the right genre of games so that their fan base can play through that while it's still relevant, while they're still interested in it.
That's actually
Somebody
really cool.
needs to streamline this process.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool. I do want to say, I feel like there is some sort of a mech game, but I don't recall what it was called. I'm sure somebody has made some sort of a mech game.
I do know that D20 Modern has a Future Tech supplement.
Okay.
A D20 Future supplement, which we actually got up on the shelf up here.
Oh, yeah.
That has an entire chapter for mecha combat.
That might be what I'm thinking.
Like how to spec out your mech, and it's in the D20 system, so it's something that a lot of players would already be familiar with.
Sure.
It doesn't do everything perfectly, but
Yeah.
it's probably one of the better ones I've personally read.
Have either of you ever heard of or played Big Eyes Small Mouth?
Can't say I
it's
have.
some sort of, I've never played it, but my friend Chris, who we had on the show a long time ago,
Dang.
I remember he has played it. Like I remember him talking about it occasionally back when I first met him. And it, from my understanding, it is some sort of an anime RPG, but I think it was incredibly complicated. I don't recall. I'll try to find something and put in the show notes for that. But it was explicitly an anime, just a general anime RPG, I think. But considering how, like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention it in 10 years, probably was not probably was not what the asker of this question was looking for.
I feel like your brother's game, if you just set it in a different theme, like the mechanics, because like the way that it is, you take over the narration, so you can get as crazy as you want.
Yeah.
So I feel like that. I feel like that opens up for a lot of crazy possibilities, and that sort of fits like a lot of what anime does. It's just some outrageous situations.
Yeah, and it was samurai themed, so it was sort of anime adjacent. I don't know.
Sure, culturally adjacent.
I guess, yeah.
It's got the right basics.
Sure. So I guess my short response to this question is yes, but is it ever going to happen? I don't know. Probably not.
I mean, we all seem to want it, but I don't think anybody here is going to put the work in.
Right.
Somebody who's very talented and very quick needs to hurry up and get us an anime RPG so we can have some fun already.
Take my money.
Yeah. Yeah, or like our daughter just discovered Full Metal Alchemist, and I don't think there's going to be a game out for it before she stops caring. So.
Right.
Oh man,
Jeff really likes
I like
Full
that.
Metal
I love that show.
She made me beg yesterday not to fuse her with our dog, so I'm already a better father than Shao Tucker.
Oh no! Oh, that's so sad.
Why? Now the whole internet is sad. What have you done?
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our regular questions, but we're going to move on to our social media discussion question segment. So our previous week's question was created by Jeff. And this question was, how much war could a Warforged forge if a Warforged could forge war? Interpret that question however you wish, is the little disclaimer I added to every social media outlet.
My favorite player race, by the way.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you listened to it, but we had a bonus episode, like a little, just an episode. It wasn't a numbered episode, but a couple months ago we had an episode where I talked about why I think Warforged don't work outside of Eberron.
Sure.
And I mean, like, I think they're a great race, but I think that most people's perception of Warforged is wrong, and it's because they keep being brought out just on their own, and I don't think they really work on their own.
Yeah, because they're not just a robot. It's not just a magic robot.
Exactly.
This is its own being with a soul. It just has it has a manufactured body.
Yeah.
Instead of a naturally born one.
Right.
But they're every bit as alive as the other members of the party would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's something like we've had players not understand that difference as well.
Well, and you got to understand that like elves are in every setting because like in every setting they've written in where elves come from and like what our elves are doing there. So like I feel like in any setting you could throw Warforged in there. You can't just say, oh, there's a robot. You have to say like there are these beings, they were created for this war or whatever. Like you have to give a reason for why they're there if you're going to use them. But like they are written specifically for Eberron, and they work best in Eberron because Eberron is about like having access to magic, like for a very long time. Like they have really easy access to magic, and it's in all of their it's ingrained in the culture of Eberron. So like being able to create these beings, makes sense.
All right. So, do any of you three have a good response to the question, how much war could a Warforged forge if a Warforged could forge war?
Hey, I came up with the question, so I'm asking. I'm the guy asking.
Okay.
I need to know this.
I have not edited last week's episode yet, so I do not recall what my answer was, but I think it was like 7.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that depends on how good his mechanic is.
Sure.
Well, a Warforged was created to fight and then hopefully win the war, so it wouldn't forge another war. It would not forge the war.
That's true. It would wait for someone else to forge war, and then it would just jump right back in.
What if a Warforged could forge war? How much war would a Warforged forge?
I don't think
all of them.
No.
Okay. All of them.
None of them.
This is asking if they could forge war. I'm pretty sure if a Warforged could forge war, judging from what I know of the Eberron setting, they would be all about having more wars, because most of them feel kind of lost without combat.
I'll fight you on this.
And heck, wouldn't you say that the Lord of Blades is kind of trying to forge a war?
Oh, yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
He is trying to forge...
just trying to keep the last one going?
He is the Warforged that could forge war.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. He's forging a Warforged war.
He's the one we're asking the question about.
Sure.
Yeah. Am I the Lord of Blades? Is this just a question I'm asking?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is
To try and justify
This
my
is an
actions.
in-character question.
Yeah.
Right here.
Jeff, are you a real boy?
We did used to always joke that Jeff was a robot.
There was a Facebook group for a long time. Is I think my friend is a robot and it scares me.
Yep.
And it's a picture of me with like half of my face is like the Terminator or something.
Yeah. Yep. And I took a picture of us where like you're pointing at something and I drew laser beams coming from your eyes.
Yeah.
So to give some listener responses, Adam B on Facebook says 11 elves licked 11 little licorice lollipops.
Okay.
So that's his answer. It's as valid of an answer as any of the other ones.
You know what? Yeah.
Sean M says 8.
Okay.
Lath, who was our winner of the Chapel on the Cliffs today, said like so much. Steve A said he actually gave, instead of answering the question, gave a character idea, a pacifist warforged.
Sure.
I feel like there have been pacifist warforges out there.
Yeah.
Warforgeds out there. Forgot to put the D in that. Then our friend Dave gave a pretty good response. Would you like to read it or do you want me to, Jeff?
Let's see. Well, assuming your average warforged can forge roughly 3 wars per day, on average, obviously there are outliers, then it comes down to a question of how much time are you allowing the warforged to forge wars? A warforged who forged wars for a fortnight might forge 42 forged wars, but perhaps a warforged forging wars gets bored forging his boring forged wars.
There you go. That was a pretty good response. That got a heart from me on Facebook.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Maybe the real question is would they be okay with outsourcing it to the orcs because they seem pretty good at that.
That's a good question. I don't know. I would say the Lord of Blades. Well, the Lord of Blades. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. That's not for us to decide. So RJ on Facebook says a warforged would forge any war he could forge if a warforged could forge war. So any of them.
Just any and all.
Any and all.
Any and all war.
Jom, our patron, said, what's your standard for war? So my response was the gold standard, of course. Mm-hmm. Whatever that means. I don't know. Caitlin said a warforged would forge all the war if a warforged could forge war. But he won't because the DM said no warforged.
Oh.
Thumbs up for me right there.
Crap.
Nathan says, well, if we're assuming that a warforged could forge war, then it entirely depends on the warforged's personality. Saw someone say pacifist warforged earlier in the comments. A volatile and violent warforged could forge quite a bit more war than a pacifist warforged.
Right, so it depends on the war.
It does depend. After today, I don't think I'm going to say forge or war anytime in the next week.
All right, so next episode, I'm going to have to bring them up as much as possible.
Jeff, come on. And then we did not get any responses on Twitter.
Oh.
Big surprise, I know.
Whatever.
And then on Reddit, we only got 2. One of them was from Lost Ranger 17, about as many lows as Rob Lowe could rob if Rob Lowe could rob Lowe's. As a person who worked at a Lowe's for a short period of time, I approve of this message.
Sure.
And then Werebear Esquire simply said 42.
Yeah. I think that's the right answer.
Probably. Oh my goodness, was Deep Thought a warforged?
I mean, he was forged.
For war? I don't know.
That's the question.
Anyway, so that was last week's question. Next week's question is, if you could have any fantasy creature or monster as a pet, what would you wish to have and why? And then I did specify, being a pet does not guarantee you are safe from it. Also, it does not guarantee that it is friendly towards you.
Sure.
Maybe you could train it. Depends on what it is.
I mean, your dog jumps on me all the time. You know?
He makes noise during our podcasts.
It's like if he was an intellect devourer, I'd be in trouble.
Oh, I would not want an intellect devourer. Well, would I? That's a good question. Either you guys got a good answer for this?
Okay, so my go-to answer would be a dragon because that's my go-to answer for everything. But since I'm not guaranteed to be safe from the dragon, I'll do you one better, and I'll take one of those Pokemon that we conveniently left out of the RPGs before.
Okay.
Because if it bothers me, I can just put it in its Pokeball. So
There you go.
So I beat that one little clause.
Yeah.
Maybe like a mimic so I can keep all my stuff in it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Keep valuable things
that is a pretty good one.
if you have a problem with, like, let's say you roll out of your bed every now and then and fall and hurt yourself, have the mimic turn into your bed. They're sticky, so you'll never roll out of it.
It might also like consume you.
I'm going to be honest, a baby mimic would be adorable.
Oh, baby mimic.
Yeah.
Just like a little. You keep your dice in it.
Sure. On an episode of the Hardy Dice Friends recently, they talked about what if mimic eggs look like gold coins. And when you take all the gold coins out of that chest, you're actually taking a bunch of baby mimics.
That's adorable and terrifying.
And then they're going to grow into full-sized mimics.
Oh, that's great. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm using that on you guys.
Uh-oh.
So
Yeah.
mimic's a good answer.
Baby mimics look like treasure. That's perfect.
Yep.
Oh.
I would say, I do love displacer beasts, and I would love having a little kitten displacer beast.
Oh, and you'd be petting it, but there wouldn't be anything
I would go
there.
to pick it up and I would just grab it the air because it's actually over there. But another thing I was thinking of was there is a monster in the 3rd edition Monster Manual 2 called the Gravorg, that the description makes it sound hideous, but its picture makes it look like this adorable little ferret. So I would want one of those. And it can cast reverse gravity at will or something. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay.
I think I would go with a coatl.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one.
It might not be too happy being a pet because they are actually quite intelligent. But at the same time, if it becomes my best friend, it's got a lot of magic powers and it's going to live forever. So
There you go. And that's what everybody wants from their pets, is for them to live forever.
Aw.
All right. Well, I think that's some good answers for that.
Ooh.
Yes.
Zaratan.
Okay.
That's what I want.
Jeff has a pet turtle that the city is built on.
Yeah, I want a pet turtle. I want a pet turtle that is also my island home. That's what I want.
There you go. Your vacation home is on your pet's back.
Yes.
All right. Well, so that'll do it for social media discussion questions. Before we close out the episode, though, we're going to go to we're gonna take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna sit back. We're going to relax. We're going to remember those who have come before us as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre.
Okay, what are these logs made out of, by the way?
They're made of people, Jeff.
don't think about it.
Did you guys had a story for the funeral pyre today?
Yes, we do.
All right.
So ours is the story of Aesir the Corgi Knight. He was our dwarven fighter cleric. He had a lot of classes.
Yeah, he was Eldritch Knight and a little bit of Cleric.
And he was once the proud tactician of my of the kingdom in my main campaign.
Okay.
When he returned to said kingdom, some things had kind of fallen to ruin. He'd noticed that some of the lords of the land weren't quite who they seemed to be. And at a dinner party, he spotted somebody acting a bit suspicious, decided to chase off after them by himself, and found himself out in the betrayal garden alone, facing off against an assassin without his weapons or his armor. And to his credit, he did very well for a while until he took a cheap shot at the assassin. The assassin looked back up at him and said, "Well, I'm going to kill you now." And the player, when you're on that side of the screen, you're not supposed to say, "You can certainly try." Those aren't your words. And thus began a string of ones and twos that led to his demise.
He did not succeed on an attack roll for the remainder of his life.
Yes.
Oh, no.
And of course,
man.
everybody else was back in the main ballroom, having their little ballroom blitz, doing very well. But unfortunately, poor Aesir did not survive that encounter with the assassin. He did go on to meet his god, though, so he is now with Morden.
Okay.
Aw.
Okay. So a couple things. Did you say the betrayal garden?
Yes.
Is that actually what it's called, or is that a reference to something?
That's what I call it.
Okay.
We were watching a lot of Game of Thrones at the time.
Okay. Well, because that made me think of the South Park. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but it made me think of the South Park episode.
Yeah, that's exactly where I got the name from.
Okay. Okay.
A couple of people had gone out to that garden later on and plotted to usurp the throne and do some other such things. It's
Did you say he was a corgi knight?
That's what I was going to ask next. Yeah.
I was hoping someone would ask.
Go ahead, you can tell him.
the Corgi Knight part of his title actually has nothing to do with his abilities. At the time, I was playing a Lithari elf, druid, and Lithari elves have the ability to assume the shape of a wolf at will. But we decided that for flavor, and because we had a little corgi that we were gushing over a picture of at the time, we decided I'd become a dire corgi instead. So when the dice rolled and we rolled initiative, we would have my elf assume the form of a corgi, and then he would hop on and we'd charge into battle.
All right, that's pretty cool. Although I'm very curious what a dire corgi would look like.
Just a large corgi. Like it's like it looks just as adorable.
I guess.
Just large in size.
One of our friends drew a picture. It is very cute, but also terrifying. I'll have to send it to you guys if I find it.
If you find it, I'll put it in the show notes.
I just want to see like corgi wearing like armor or something.
Oh my goodness! There was some guy that made like hamster chainmail, and it got up to like $50,000 on eBay or something. Anyway, let's raise a glass in memory of Aesir the Corgi Knight, who challenged an assassin to certainly try, and that assassin certainly tried. Clink. All right. Before we do our outro, would you guys like to tell our listeners once more about your show, where they can find you, anything you guys are working on, anything like that?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, we are The Cantrip. You can find us on SoundCloud and Stitcher and iTunes.
It's thecantrip.wordpress.com for our show notes and links to all of our other, basically everywhere you can find us.
Yeah, and anything we talk about on our podcast, we put links to all of those research materials and anything else we reference in those show notes. You can email us at thecantrippodcast@gmail.com. And as far as what we're working on...
just lastly, Matsuricon's coming up for us at the end of August, so if anybody's going to be in Columbus and wants to do lots of one-shots, we have lots of one-shots.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and as of tonight's recording, we have our own personal copy of Pathfinder 2nd Edition showing up in 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to start working on that and see how that is.
Yeah, I heard about that yesterday. I heard about that for the first time yesterday. I was like, that never dawned on me that they would make a 2nd edition. I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they?
Okay, so thank you guys so much for coming on the show. If our listeners would like to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube page where we play video games. Right now we're playing Hollow Knight and Little Nightmares, which is going to give me a few little nightmares.
All right. And if you'd like to submit some of your childhood memories of going to the arcade, either write them to us in an email or record it yourself and send it to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So Jeff, until next time...
Jeff used send-off. It wasn't very effective.
There you go.